My husband is a great general whose name resounds throughout the land. He has a military advisor whose fame is no less illustrious. My own blood elder sister born of the same parents. For 20 years they weathered storms together, rode shoulder to shoulder into battle, swept across the world, expanded the frontiers. Their achievements were so outstanding they were inscribed in the annals of history. The world lauded them as a perfect match made in heaven, a pair born for each other, the most fitting couple of all. As for me, with the halo of the general's wife upon my head and cloaked in the glory of being the younger sister of the foremost female strategist, I was nothing more than a detestable wretch cursed to die young, an obstacle blocking their path. When my elder sister died, my husband took his own life at the city gates, leaving me a suicide note containing only one sentence. In this life, we could not be united in name. I only pray to be buried beside her in death. If there is a next life, could you fulfill our wish? Having endured a lifetime of suffering, I naturally refused to let them have their way. One was ground to bone dust by me and scattered into the East Sea to feed the fish and shrimp. The other was smashed to pieces by the new emperor, wrapped tightly and thrown to the western vultures to devour. Reborn into a new life, Chen Yunjiao, wanting to marry my elder sister, came before me to break off the engagement. I pushed open the door and my voice rang out, clear and decisive. This marriage is cancelled. The moment the words fell, the entire hall fell deathly silent. Chen Yunjiao lifted his eyes to look at me. When his gaze met my pale, sickly face, he awkwardly lowered his eyes. Younger sister King has agreed to fulfill our wish. I will remember this kindness. Chen Yunjiao's tall, straight figure carried the sharp aura of a military officer. Standing tall and proper, he knelt before grandmother to speak of breaking the engagement. Yet it was coercion pushed to the extreme, determined to achieve his goal no matter what. Chao's reputation has been damaged. I am willing to bear full responsibility. Furthermore, my feelings toward King are only those of brother and sister. There is no romantic affection between us. This time King's misfortune was an accident. But when I asked my own heart, I knew that even if she had not jumped into the river herself, I would still have followed my heart and rushed straight toward Chao. I stood behind the folding screen and heard every single word, so I slowly stepped out. Facing Chen Yunjiao's expectant gaze and my parents' anxious eyes, I spoke each word with iron resolve. This marriage is cancelled. The very next instant slap. Grandmother struck Chen Yunjiao hard across the face. 3 days ago your abandonment nearly cost her life. 3 days later she struggled with great difficulty to drag her sick body back to the capital. And now you want to use the blade of worldly affairs to sever the rest of her life? What sin has my king ever committed against you? Chen Yunjiao's head was knocked sideways. Grandmother's chest heaved violently with rage. Trembling, she pulled me into her arms, tears pouring down like rain. In the previous life, on the day my elder sister Lin Chao and I were traveling to the temple to pray for blessings, we met disaster ambushed by fierce bandits. Elder sister Lin Chao, facing the encirclement of cold blades, clutched her bleeding chest and shouted toward where I was hiding, "Eldest Miss, run, my identity has been exposed. I will take your place as the Lin family's eldest daughter and be hunted in your stead." Countless men in black advanced step by step, blades gleaming. At that moment the young General Chen Yunjiao arrived on horseback. Unfortunately, one man and one horse could not save both of us, surrounded at opposite ends. In the previous life, grandmother had betrothed me to the general's manor. He could not afford the bad reputation of implicating the manor and drawing criticism, so of course he did not hesitate. He ran straight toward me. But my elder sister was being pressed closer by the bandits. Desperate to survive, she gritted her teeth and leapt into the bitterly cold river. She had been proud and delicate since childhood. Her body was weak. After being submerged, her constitution was ruined. For the rest of her life she could never conceive from a peerless noble lady, whom every powerful family in the capital vied to marry. She became someone the great houses pitied and abandoned. She fell from the divine altar, covered in the dust of the mortal world, wretched and no longer glorious. From then on, for 20 long years, Chen Yunjiao seemed forever immersed in the river water of that night. When he smiled wickedly, he said, "King, Chao has ruined her body. The entire capital knows her marriage is difficult. She has also vowed never to marry. Let us not make a scene and hurt her feelings, all right?" My parents pitied my elder sister. One lowered their head, unable to hide their sorrow. The other wept endlessly, mouths full of laments about their daughter's misfortune. As for me, I was merely a living medicine jar for my frail elder sister. My feelings and opinions had never mattered. Later, when he and my elder sister achieved fame and glory on the battlefield and were praised by the world, while I was cursed with a short life, he said, What I owe Chao cannot be repaid by fame or wealth. Qing, you must be magnanimous. I was sent by the Qin family under the pretext of a blemish to the Buddhist hall in the rear courtyard, clearly having done nothing wrong. I still had to copy scriptures and kneel in prayer every day to atone. Later still, my elder sister harbored great ambitions. She wanted to rule the world. Chen Yunjiao, holding command of 100,000 troops, willingly became her vanguard. At that time he abandoned me, the one left behind in the capital, as a hostage. He said, "Those who scheme for great undertakings cannot avoid bloodshed and sacrifice." Countless generals and soldiers face life and death partings everywhere. As a general, I must be decisive for the greater picture, and cannot bury the army's morale for personal feelings. Qing, it is rare for you to possess such great wisdom as your elder sister. You should fulfill her in the future. We will definitely build a shrine and temple for you, so that you may leave your name for posterity. He remained forever immersed in the river water of that night, pouring his entire heart and soul into my elder sister for a lifetime. As for me, for the sake of marrying him, I spent my life bowing my head and bending my back, enduring humiliation and hardship, only to ultimately pour out my heart and soul to fulfill their so-called greater righteousness. I was unwilling. I did not consent. I was furious as I pushed open the humiliating door that had imprisoned me for a lifetime, knelt straight before the new emperor, and exposed the weaknesses of my elder sister and the fatal flaws of Chen Yunjiao. Later, my elder sister was defeated in battle, just one step from success, and was shot dead by the new emperor with a single arrow. Chen Yunjiao, clutching her corpse in utter agony, did not hesitate to take his own life at the foot of the city wall. The suicide note left for me contained only one sentence: "In this life we could not be together as husband and wife in name, but after death I only hope to be buried with her. You and I are like swallows and swans, ultimately, on different paths, life and death in two worlds. If there is a next life, could you make it happen for us?" Naturally, I would not let him have his wish. Chen Yunjiao, who had stepped on my flesh and blood to climb higher step by step, was ground to bone dust by me and scattered into the East Sea to feed the fish and shrimp. Lin Chao, who had trampled on the bones of commoners and generals alike to stand above 10,000 people, was smashed to pieces by the new emperor, wrapped tightly, and thrown into the bellies of the Western vultures, so that in life they could not be together legitimately, and in death they would be separated by heaven and sea. I was rewarded and praised by the new emperor. I thought I had vented my hatred, but every time I woke in the middle of the night, cold tears soaked my pillow again and again. Only then did I understand. From chaos arose the two principles. Hatred is the extreme of love. I was no different, trapped for a lifetime in that cold night, frozen until my entire life rotted away. Therefore, in this life I refuse to be a stepping stone on the female protagonist's path to growth. I refuse to continue being an eyesore obstacle to their loving pair. In this life, just as Chen Yunjiao was riding his horse and preparing to charge into the bandits' encirclement, I suddenly grabbed a handful of mud and dirt and fiercely flung it straight into the faces of the men in black. Seizing that instant, my body rolled once and I fell straight into the river. In the end, I personally eliminated the unavoidable choice that had once weighed upon him. But when I emerged gasping from the roaring river water, I learned that Chen Yunjiao had not hesitated. He had rushed straight toward my elder sister. His spear was like a dragon, angrily knocking away 3 men. He reached out, scooped up my elder sister, and galloped away on horseback. From beginning to end, he never spared me an extra glance. I did not feel heartbroken. We both chose differently from our previous life, following our hearts. I took a deep breath and quietly swam toward the opposite shore, toward Hantan Temple, where there was light, the other shore that helped me escape my fate. In the previous life, when the entire world praised the military advisor and the general while cursing me to die young, I would sit stiffly night after night beneath the oil lamp, recalling everything that had happened that day. How wonderful it would have been if the one he saved was not me. How wonderful if the one who jumped into the river was me. How wonderful if I had known how to swim and had not needed him to save me. A heart demon took root in me, trapping me day and night within that eternal bloody massacre, unable to escape. So I learned to swim in this life. I swam ashore by myself. 3 days later, as I wished, I returned to the manor, carrying the wisdom and resolve of this life. As soon as I stepped down from the sedan chair, Mother was already waiting at the gate to berate me. "Where have you run off to? Do you know how much grievance your elder sister has had to endure because of you? If I had known you were so heartless and useless, I would rather not have given birth to you to burden Chao." Father also frowned unhappily and scolded. "If there is nothing wrong, why did you not return home early and hide outside? Watching your elder sister be speculated about and ridiculed by others while leaving your parents to search frantically for you. Is that fun? Elder sister Lin Chao was extraordinarily talented. Her reputation resounded throughout the capital. At 3, she knew characters. At 5, she could casually write verses that would be passed down through the ages. At 7, she entered the palace and won the Empress Dowager's favor. At 10, with a single sentence about heroes and outstanding figures, she earned the emperor's praise and was enfeoffed as a county princess. She was the pride of the Lin family, the treasure of our parents, a peerless genius of heaven that allowed no blemish whatsoever. They looked worried on the surface, but in their hearts, they were calculating how to make everything perfect for my elder sister. I had fallen into the river, life and death uncertain. My parents, using my elder sister's reputation, subtly reminded Chen Yunjiao that he must take responsibility for her. The search for me back to the capital was merely perfunctory, just to push me in front of everyone, so I would personally agree to break the engagement. It would be best if I said something like this in front of everyone. At that time, the situation was too critical. It was I who forced young General Chen to save my elder sister. First, they were a match made in heaven. Whether by status or by talent and beauty, this marriage should belong to my elder sister. That way Lin Chao would not have to bear the reputation of abandoning her younger sister to steal her fiancé. Chen Yunjiao could also shed the burden of having abandoned his fiancé and become entangled with her elder sister. As for me, after being jilted, I would fall into an awkward situation. Advancing or retreating, no one cared. Chen Yunjiao saw me return with a pale face and felt some guilt. He lowered his voice and asked, "You know how to swim now. Why did you not return earlier? Are you blaming me for not saving you first back then?" At that time the situation was urgent. "I do not blame you," I interrupted him. "People cannot hold grudges just because they were not chosen by others, right? Anyways, in this life he is not my choice." Chen Yunjiao's pupils trembled slightly. He suddenly looked at me as if unable to believe these words could come from my mouth. I had once shouldered many things for my elder sister. She once had a conflict with a noble lady, and out of jealousy pushed her into the water. Our parents panicked and threw my perfume pouch at the scene to frame her. Later, when they stepped forward to apologize in front of everyone, they all blamed me for being narrow-minded and jealous. My elder sister wanted to climb higher, and once gifted a brush and ink to Prince Qi, inside which was a love poem she had written. When Prince Qi's wife came to the door to cause trouble, she turned around and slapped me, scolding me for being shameless. Even this pursuit and assassination was because she was jealous of the unparalleled beauty of the legitimate daughter of the Yongning Marquis Manor. She had our useless cousin deliver a handkerchief from that young lady to express affection, forcing that proud young lady to lose her reputation and resolutely cut her hair to become a nun. The heir of the Marquis Manor could not swallow this anger and sent people to assassinate Lin Chao. She even deliberately led the villains toward me to escape, while my life and death were uncertain. She stood before everyone and sighed. I already said that doing many unrighteous deeds will lead to self-destruction. She just would not listen, and did not know who she had provoked this time. She always easily captivates people's hearts. Whether those words were true or false, no one investigated. Now, after narrowly escaping death and returning, before I had even stepped into the manor, I had to listen to a barrage of reproaches from my parents. Just as they were about to say more, the 7th princess lifted the carriage curtain. "Ching!" Amid everyone's stunned silence, she smiled and winked at me, instructing, "This time you caught a cold and damaged your body. If it were not for this palace happening to pass by and pick you up, you might have died in the cold water with no one to collect your body, suffering an undeserved calamity because of someone else's baseness. How pitiful. Remember, the medicine this palace gave you must not be interrupted. You must nurture your body well. In a few days I will come visit you." Although she was concerned about my body, every sentence landed like a cold slap on my parents' faces. They say I faked my death to make things difficult for my elder sister, but in reality I only just stepped through the gates of hell, thanks to the princess's rescue. They say they searched hard for me for 3 days with no news, but the princess only casually passed by and was able to pick me up enough to show how perfunctory their so-called arduous search was. Even their attempt to silence the world by claiming the bandits were lured by my lack of self-restraint was completely washed clean by the princess's single phrase, "undeserved calamity." They felt no remorse, only embarrassment. They fiercely glared at me but did not dare confront the princess, only bowing their heads with forced smiles to agree in front of everyone. The stains they had splashed on me should be returned to them, shouldn't they? Just then my cousin, unable to climb the high branch, had his leg secretly broken by the Marquis Manor, and came to Lin Chao demanding an explanation. I deliberately chose to return to the capital at this exact moment today precisely to wait for him. My parents were about to silence him when the princess gave a cold glance. Her guards immediately pressed my cousin to the ground. A round of beating with clubs followed, and all of Lin Chao's schemes against the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor were laid bare before everyone. The peerless genius of heaven high above turned out to have a narrow heart, not hesitating to use such despicable methods to drive a noble lady to her death. The seventh princess truthfully reported what she had seen and heard to the emperor. Lin Chao's county princess title was revoked on the spot. The Empress Dowager personally issued an edict punishing her for losing the decorum of a noble family, damaging the family's reputation, and lacking virtue and morality, ordering her to copy scriptures to atone for her sins. The seventh princess did not forget my request either. On behalf of the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor, who had suffered an undeserved calamity, she requested a marriage edict. Her fiancé was young General Zhao, the young general who had died in battle defending the city in the previous life. One had never married in his lifetime and died still carrying the perfume pouch embroidered by Miss Xiao. The other, upon hearing the news, immediately smashed his head against a pillar and died. Whether ascending to the ninth heaven or descending to the 9 springs, they wanted to be together with young General Zhao. I had never been loved, but I also did not want loving people to be separated. Therefore, using the people at Hantan Temple, I fulfilled their wish and also tore apart Lin Chao's hypocritical facade. Lin Chao lost all face. The young ladies she had once trampled underfoot madly mocked and attacked her. She was so angry she smashed tables and threw bowls, finally using illness as an excuse to shut herself indoors. My parents took the opportunity to shed tears in front of Chen Yunzhao. Chao has always been understanding. This time the crime fell from the sky. What can she do? She can only suffer in silence and fall ill. Qian Zhao concluded, this was my shameless revenge using the seventh princess's hand. He turned and went to grandmother's courtyard, resolutely kneeling before her and proposing to break off the engagement with me. To marry Chao, there is the scene we just witnessed. Mother King is your granddaughter? Isn't Chao also your granddaughter? After all, they are sisters. It makes no difference whose head this marriage falls upon. My parents' faces showed 3 parts feigned difficulty and 7 parts unconcealable joy. Grandmother fiercely threw the teacup in her hand before them. Chao is the peerless genius of heaven, the glory of the Lin family and the treasure in your hands. What does King have? She only cried once out of fear of implicating her parents. Qing was thrown to this old woman's courtyard when she was only 6 months old. Everything she wears, eats, uses, none of it was ever chosen by you with care. Everything was first picked by Chao. Qing only deserves to pick up what falls from your eldest daughter's hands. I will die, sooner or later. Once I die, who will still care about Qing's life or death? This marriage was something I shamelessly begged for on behalf of this child, hoping for a lifetime of peace for her. Even this, you as parents are shamelessly fighting with her over it? Grandmother was so angry she could barely breathe in and out. I frantically burned calming incense for her, helping her regulate her breathing. Qin Yunzhao, as if afraid I would not agree, clasped his hands and begged me, Qing, even if you do not become husband and wife, you can still be brother and sister. You strike hard but land softly. Chao and I will definitely protect you for a lifetime of peace. His back was tense, his eyes cold. He hinted to me that if I continued to be stubborn and pushed to the end, I would definitely regret it too late. I lifted my skirt and knelt straight down, just as Chen Yunzhao's expression changed in shock. Grandmother and I spoke at the same time. Lin Qing, do you want to go back on your word? Grandmother, your granddaughter is willing to break off the engagement with him. As soon as the words were spoken, I felt relieved. He was stunned, but quickly breathed a sigh of relief as if a burden had been lifted, then looked at me with a complex gaze. This matter has nothing to do with Chao. If you have resentment directed at me, after I marry your elder sister, I will choose a truly good marriage for you among the descendants of the powerful and noble in the capital. I thank him for his good intentions. It is just that my marriage does not require his consent. 3 days before returning to the capital, I had already chosen my husband and planned a completely different life from the previous one. From now on, between me, Chen Yunzhao, and Lin Chao there would be rivers and mountains separating us. We would not meet again, nor would we need to discuss who was right or wrong. The marriage between Chen Yunzhao and Lin Chao was set. My parents were overjoyed beyond measure. They wanted to seize the dowry grandmother had left for me and give it to Lin Chao. In the end they lowered themselves to come to my courtyard. Father said, Chao is marrying into a noble house. Now her reputation is damaged. Without additional dowry as support, she will be looked down upon by others. Mother said, Qing, you are still young, and you have just been jilted. This matter has caused a stir everywhere. It will be difficult to find a suitable match in the short term. This dowry will be lent to Chao first, later we will gradually make it up to you. But in the previous life, before I was married off just because of one sentence from Chen Yunjiao, no need to make a big fuss, they had cried and made a scene, keeping half of my dowry. Chao has damaged her body and reputation. Her marriage will definitely be difficult. Without keeping more money and property for her, how will she establish herself and live in the future? In this life, the one without a place to stand has become me. They changed their tune. Only those who are loved can act without restraint, but the one who is loved has never been me from beginning to end. Lin Chao sat in the back, coldly observing, her expression lofty as if it had nothing to do with her. Perhaps by seizing my dowry she could once again rely on her system to accumulate points, step by step on her path, as the great female protagonist, hiding behind without expending any effort to take it. Hadn't she taken enough advantage? I did not want that. Therefore I directly called her name. Elder sister? What does elder sister think? Being directly named by me, Lin Chao's face stiffened. She forced a smile and said, Marriage matters have always been decided by parents and matchmakers. It is not my turn to decide. My parents vigilantly shielded her and said to me, Chao has always been understanding and will not make things difficult for her parents. It is just a bit of dowry. You are still hesitating and cannot let go. If it were Chao, she would definitely not value money more than family ties. I looked at the slight curl of Lin Chao's lips and asked again, but a few days ago, didn't elder sister publicly say at the banquet that she wanted to use herself to exchange for the freedom of marriage? So marrying young General Chen is that elder sister's heartfelt wish. If she admits it, then she is stealing my marriage arrangement. If she does not admit it, then she is looking down on Chen Yunjiao and the general's manner. Lin Chao's smile could no longer be maintained. She coldly glared at me. What do you mean? It is just a man you still cannot let go. If you do not want it, I will go talk to Chen Yunjiao myself and have him marry you. What is the point of dragging it out endlessly? Besides, it is just some external positions. So many people are rushing to offer them to me. Do you really think I care about your petty things? She said she did not care about those things, but she did not say a single word about not needing them. Just as my parents were about to berate me from behind a row of trees, the seventh princess burst into laughter. If there are so many righteous people bringing dowries to the door, then why did Miss Lin have to run to her younger sister's courtyard to snatch it? Other people's things burn the hands, but a younger sister's are easy to take, right? Stealing someone's fiancé is one thing. Now you even want to snatch the dowry too. What else do you want to seize? Relying only on parents is not interesting. We are helping you snatch it together. I had long arranged for her and a group of young ladies to stand behind the garden so they could watch a good show from the leading noble lady. Lin Chao's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Her cold gaze, filled with hatred, fell upon me, but for the sake of face she still forced a smile. Of course not. It is just that mother was testing younger sister's heart. I had already prepared this dowry long ago. They left with ashen faces, but the matter of her stealing her younger sister's fiancé and dowry became the topic of conversation after tea throughout the capital. Chen Yunjiao unilaterally breaking the engagement caused my grandmother to fall seriously ill. The Chen family was already being criticized by the world for being unreasonable. Now, before the bride had even crossed the threshold, they had caused a storm throughout the city. Even Chen Yunjiao was reprimanded by the emperor. Madame Chen was a difficult person and vented all her dissatisfaction on Lin Chao, pouring out the tea she offered in front of everyone, causing her to lose face. She caused a ruckus in her courtyard, smashing mirrors and then throwing the entire makeup box, completely losing her usual dignified and calm demeanor. That so-called system of hers had turned from constant praise in her mouth into curses. My parents lovingly coaxed and persuaded her. Once you marry into the general's manor and capture Chen Yunjiao's heart, are you still afraid you will not be able to control them? There is no other choice now, my good daughter, just peacefully get married. Until the wedding day, the 8-person flower sedan from the general's manor had long been waiting at the door. Unfortunately, the world looked down on the Lin family's conduct and despised the Chen family's actions. Guests offering congratulations were sparse. Sandwiched between Madame Chen and Lin Chao, Chen Yunjiao tasted bitterness for the first time. He no longer had his previous spirited demeanor. Sitting on his tall horse, he could not hide the dark circles under his eyes or the melancholy in his brows. When his eyes inadvertently met mine, he froze and then lowered his gaze, carrying a trace of insignificant guilt from 2 lifetimes. If your marriage arrangement is truly difficult, then do not force it. Mother still likes your obedient and understanding nature. I suddenly interrupted him. My marriage does not require the general's concern. Facing his surprised expression, I said word by word, because I will be getting married soon too in the capital. Who would choose this time to marry you? As soon as the words left my mouth, Chen Yunjiao realized his impropriety. He was about to open his mouth to explain when a cold, mocking laugh sounded from behind. Prince Ning Xiao's Jingyuan, you have been recuperating at Hantan Temple for many years. He lifted the carriage curtain. His eyes were slightly narrowed, his sword-like brows sharp. Within his indifferent demeanor hid an imposing pressure. What if it is this prince? I smiled faintly, raised my eyes with a hint of coldness, facing Chen Yunjiao, whose face was full of shock. It is His Highness Princing the opponent who killed him in the previous life, and also my only savior. On the day Chen Yunjiao took my elder sister and rode away from the bandits toward the west, I did not hesitate to swim straight toward Hantan Temple. Xiao Jingyuan sat cross-legged on a meditation cushion, fingering Buddhist beads, his eyes slightly closed. Within his transcendent coldness hid killing intent. The candlelight on the Buddhist altar shone from behind him, casting a layer of illusory Buddhist light upon him, overlapping with the figure from my previous life, stepping out of the backlight, suddenly coinciding. The new emperor of the previous life with cold sword-like brows, icy phoenix eyes, thin lips slightly opening and closing, had the entire Chen family hanged high on the city wall, to be buried with the 10,000 citizens in the city, but spared only me. At that time I knelt before him, just like in this life, kowtowing deeply, welcoming the morning bell, pleading, I want to go ashore. In this life I laid out my loyalty, my plans, my ambitions bit by bit before heaven and earth and the gods and Buddhas in the hall. Will you cooperate with me? Chen Yunjiao suddenly spoke, interrupting my thoughts. He stepped toward me, appraising me, a cold smile on his lips. His Highness has always been devoted to Buddhism. Why suddenly return to the mortal world? Younger sister King has always had a bad reputation. Where did she get the fortune to marry into the imperial family? Facing his cold, superior gaze filled with contempt, I spoke neither arrogantly nor obsequiously. Qing is of humble talent and strength. When young General Chen spread the news of breaking the engagement throughout the capital, I presented His Majesty with a prescription for preventing and treating epidemics. My small merit is not worth mentioning. Being granted marriage by His Majesty is a heavenly grace. In that instant, Chen Yunjiao's face turned deathly pale. That day at Han Temple, Xiao Jingyuan listened for a long time. I also knelt for a long time. Only when the first rooster crowed did he slightly open his long eyes and coldly glance at me. I am imprisoned, and you have no control over anything. I am also powerless. He lowered his eyelids and continued fingering the Buddhist beads. He was hinting that if I wanted to cooperate, I had to show the ability to rescue him from the mountain, to prove I was someone worth using. I exhaled and picked up a brush to write down a prescription. When the first ray of sunlight pierced through the window, illuminating my back, I presented it with both hands. I can escape, and Your Highness can also return safely to the capital. Finally, he was willing to look straight at me. His black eyes were as deep as a pool at the foot of a mountain, unfathomable. Cooperating with a tiger, do you know how dangerous it is? I smiled, carrying the unwillingness of the previous life and the fury of this one, and said decisively, this path is dangerous, but the chance of victory is great. Exchange danger for protection. Why not give it a try, Your Highness? My determination showed that I was betting everything without the slightest concession. He looked at me for a long time, before slowly reaching out to accept my epidemic prevention prescription, and also agreeing to accept my allegiance. For 3 days at Hantan Temple, I told him everything about the opportunities and challenges of the previous life, without holding anything back. On the 3rd day, his younger sister, the 7th princess, received his message and came to take me home. Before leaving, he stood under the golden Buddha statue, hidden in the thick darkness, and asked me in a low voice, why? In the capital there were many princes. Yet he was the least favored, carrying the mark of misfortune from the national preceptor. He had long been sent to Hantan Temple to pray for blessings, no different from a discarded person, but I deliberately chose him. Why? How should I answer? In the previous life, when Lin Chao wanted to become a female emperor who would leave her name for eternity, Chen Yunjiao, for the greater good, did not hesitate to sacrifice my life to fulfill her. The entire capital knelt in righteous indignation, dragged me out from the Buddhist hall, bound me, and brought me to the city gate, placing a blade at my neck, wanting to use my head to rally the troops. Clearly I had done nothing wrong, yet the vast heaven and earth seemed to leave me no way out, until the executioner's blade and the fury of the entire city were about to fall upon my head. The new emperor personally arrived. He reached out and pulled me from the mud of suffering, embracing my body covered in blood so I could not stand, wrapping me in his dragon-embroidered robe that carried a faint scent of dragon saliva incense. He said, "Betrayed by bloodkin, abandoned by the one you love, if we speak of fury and unwillingness, you surpass everyone here. Using an innocent woman to dig a pit that any different from the traitor Chen Yunjiao and Lin Chao massacring the entire city to display power? The sunlight was dazzling. My eyes were sealed shut by dried blood, unable to clearly see his features. I could only vaguely see his tall figure descending from the heavens to save me like a deity. Clearly, he could have used my blood to sacrifice the blade and boost morale, but instead he donned silver armor, carrying the resolve to treat death as returning home, sharing life and death with the great army. My entire life I had endured and compromised. Only on that day did I break free from the chains that had weighed on me for a lifetime, discarding obedience, and fiercely knelt before the new emperor. I sold out Chen Yunjiao and also exposed Lin Chao's weakness, that she relied on stealing the luck of others to obtain immortal opportunities. I learned this from the mouth of a maidservant, who had been beaten nearly to death by Lin Chao. At that time she had been wrapped in a straw mat, her blood-covered corpse dragged out, blood still flowing from her mouth and nose as she struggled to say one sentence to me. Her system is stealing your luck. When one gains, the other loses. You are her living blood bag. Even grandmother, who loved me so much, once said that stealing luck was baseless. My parents scolded me even more for having my brain burned out. Even the servants said I was driven mad by jealousy toward my elder sister. No one believed me. What about Xiao Jingyuan? He slowly descended the jade steps one step at a time. His voice was deep like a staff striking my heart until he stopped before me and extended his hand. Then let's bet once, stake my life on it. How about it? The candlelight in the hall flickered, illuminating his face. At that moment I suddenly understood what it meant for a scholar to die for a true friend. I was too lonely. My entire life I had only sought a bit of fairness and proper recognition, as a daughter, as a wife, and as an ordinary person. He and I were as different as clouds and mud. We had never known each other. He was willing to stake his life because he believed in me, and I would not let him lose in this life. I still wanted to win. Therefore, looking toward my true savior beside the golden Buddha statue, I said in a hoarse voice, "Because I believe in you." Therefore, on the very day I returned to the capital, I used the incident of my cousin, causing trouble to expose Lin Chao's hypocrisy, seizing back the luck that originally belonged to me and the young lady of the Marquis Manor. Miss Xiao of the Marquis Manor also fulfilled her wish to be with the one she loved day and night. Moreover, out of gratitude for my rescue, she brought her family and the Zhao family to pledge allegiance under Xiao Jingyuan. As for Lin Chao, because she had not accumulated enough luck, she lost the immortal opportunity from the previous life. After the flood in Jiangnan, an epidemic broke out in the previous life. She had taken the prescription to save people. At that time, just as Chen Yunjiao lifted my bridal veil, holding the wedding wine cup in his hand, a servant rushed in to report that Miss Lin had gone alone to the epidemic-stricken Jiangnan region. Chen Yunjiao immediately let go of me. She is only a woman. Even if she carries great righteousness in her heart, she cannot take such risks. The wedding wine cup was slammed down hard on the table. He discarded the red silk sash and turned to leave. The spicy wine splashed onto the back of my hand, making my eyes both dry and sore. Once he left, it was 20 years. My elder sister, by foreseeing the opportunity and making flawless calculations, not only cured the epidemic but also won a victory in suppressing the local bandits. From 1,000 miles away, Chen Yunjiao sent a letter into the palace, requesting that my elder sister be infected with the status of military advisor. From then on, my elder sister completely stayed in the military camp, eating and living with Chen Yunjiao for 20 years. They rode shoulder to shoulder, swept across the world, expanded the frontiers, their merits so outstanding they were inscribed in the history books. The world praised them as a pair of perfect jade and jade, a match made in heaven, the most compatible couple. As for me, with the halo of the general's wife upon my head, and cloaked in the glory of being the younger sister of the female strategist, for 20 years I could only hear news of my husband from others' mouths. They even to fulfill the love between the military advisor and the general, cursed me to die young. I wore a wedding dress and married him, only to receive a lifetime of suffering that belonged to me in this life. I returned the marriage to them. It was only the prescription from back then, the one I had carried with astonishment and studied day after day in the previous life. Now, using the seventh princess's hand, I presented it to the palace. An epidemic that had not yet had time to spread was thoroughly controlled by that prescription. The opportunity that allowed Lin Chao to become renowned throughout the land in the previous life had been seized by me in this life. Chen Yunjiao's brows furrowed high and cold. He looked at me darkly. Prince Ying's return to the capital. Was it because of you? In the previous life, after Lin Chao finished saving the disaster victims, she and Chen Yunjiao conveniently went to suppress the bandits. In the bandits' lair, they discovered a massive gold mine, which became the foundation for her and Chen Yunjiao to recruit troops and raise horses to rebel later. In this life, it was reported to the emperor by Xiao Jingyuan under the pretext of a dream. On the day the bandits were eliminated, the gold mine was revealed. The national preceptor, who had once prophesied that the third prince would bring disaster to the imperial city, was struck dead by lightning on the stargazing platform, a gruesome sight too horrible to behold. The rumor that he was a jinx by heavenly mandate also collapsed on its own. Xiao Jingyuan, who should have left Hantan Temple 5 years later, now emerged like a dragon entering the sea, officially appearing before the world. While Chen Yunjiao was still busy preparing for the grand wedding, the opportunities that had belonged to him in the previous life had been silently seized by us. What the emperor feared most was a prince who had just gained fame and popular support, and who was also marrying into a powerful family. Xiao Jingyuan deliberately chose an unknown person like me. The emperor gladly agreed. Therefore today he came with the imperial edict, causing Chen Yunjiao and Lin Chao to suffer a great humiliation. Chen Yunjiao stared fixedly at Xiao Jingyuan, the man who, in the previous life, had pierced Lin Chao's heart with a single arrow. The coldness in his eyes flickered and hid itself away. Then, congratulations, Your Highness. But the hand with which my elder sister gripped the red silk sash turned deathly pale. In this game of fate where one gains and another loses, I had seized the initiative step by step, trampling upon her so-called system, reclaiming bit by bit the life that had always belonged to me. She could be wary, she could hate me. From this day forward, the one robbed of every opportunity would be her, the version of me from the previous life, locked in a tiny corner with no way out. Let her hate me. So on the third day after the wedding, when I returned to my natal home, she made her move against me. The 8 treasure soup had been drugged by mother's own hands. To force me to drink it, she had put on a rare show of maternal affection. I lifted the bowl and stared straight at her. If you, as parents, cannot treat your children fairly, then there is no need to keep stepping on one while lifting the other. Mother's expression turned panicked, her face filled with fury. I am your mother. How could I possibly harm you? She had not even finished speaking when I seized her by the throat and forced the entire bowl of soup down her throat. She struggled, desperately, the bowl clattering to the floor. You filthy wretch! Your mouth never stops spewing nonsense. Are you trying to kill me? In the cold smile on my face that already understood everything, she was like a chicken being strangled, completely silenced. Under my icy gaze, she gradually went limp and collapsed to the ground, using the last of her strength to beg me. Qing, I am your mother. You cannot destroy me. I stood up, looked down at her fear and trembling, and turned away indifferently. As I stepped out of the room, I did not forget to leave one final sentence behind. But the one who wanted to destroy me first, wasn't it you? Half an incense stick later, Lin Chao arrived as promised, bringing several young ladies and madams of close acquaintance to admire the flowers with me. Yet through the door they heard the shameful moans that made people's faces burn with contempt. Lin Chao did not waste the perfect opportunity. She pretended to panic and sent someone to summon father from the front courtyard. Father, putting on an act of having lost all face, even brought along a group of uncles who had been drinking tea and chatting with Chen Yunjiao. He and Lin Chao exchanged a glance, both wearing expressions of certain victory. Immediately afterward they began cursing me for being shameless and kicked the door open with one foot. They had intended to use my supposed lack of self-restraint to destroy my marriage, but in the next instant they froze in place like statues. The person tangled in the sheets with the 3 men was clearly Mother, the woman who had always loved Lin Chao more than her own life. Father looked as though he had been struck by lightning. He stood rooted to the spot, trembling uncontrollably. Lin Chao's entire body went soft. She screamed, Where is Lin Qing? Where did she go? Why? She suddenly realized something. Her pupils trembled violently. Lin Qing actually dared to scheme against mother. I will kill her. Young Madam Chen, whom do you wish to kill? The seventh princess had only just spoken when the air instantly fell silent. I supported grandmother, who was shaking with rage, and faced Lin Chao's fury with calm, measured words. Her Highness and I have been drinking tea in grandmother's courtyard the entire time? You still want to play dumb? It is clearly you who harmed mother, arranging for her to be violated right inside your own courtyard. I must clean the house on mother's behalf. I hope trampling on my reputation and marriage to steal my luck was worth it. Her eyes turned red with hatred as she declared she would act on heaven's behalf. Beat her, kill her. The corner of my mouth curved upward. I smiled at her. If she was truly violated, and yet elder sister insists in front of everyone that it was me, then since the deed was done there must be traces left behind. Why not let the Ministry of Justice investigate thoroughly? Before Lin Chao could retort, I stepped half a pace aside, revealing the heir of the Xiao family standing behind me, the one betrothed to the seventh princess. Coincidentally, he had just entered the Ministry of Justice a few days earlier to handle criminal cases. Under Lin Chao's shocked gaze, I smiled faintly. How fortunate. The heir and elder sister could be considered somewhat acquainted. He will naturally handle the matter fairly. After all, his own younger sister nearly fell victim to Lin Chao's scheme. This debt should be settled as well. Lin Chao's body went limp. Chen Yunjiao quickly caught her, before she could fall. She stood there in silence, watching the entire scene unfold. If Chen Yunjiao still did not understand at this point, then the head he carried onto the battlefield was only there for others to chop off. He understood. Yet he still lowered his voice and said to me, family scandals should not be aired in public. Younger Sister King should think carefully about her own reputation and future. I laughed. Just now when elder sister was pushing me to the brink, why didn't young General Chen advise her to think carefully about my future and reputation? When I stand up for myself, does that suddenly become excessive? Chen Yunjiao's face turned deathly pale. He roared in anger. That is your mother and your own elder sister. Must you drive them to death? The heir of the Xiao family spoke up. Is young General Chen threatening Miss Lin? The person involved is still inside the room. Wouldn't a trip to the Ministry of Justice make everything clear? What exactly is young General Chen trying to hide that cannot be known by others? Chen Yunjiao was struck speechless. Lin Chao immediately burst into loud sobs. Today mother has to walk out carrying such humiliation. Tomorrow the entire world will point fingers at her, dragging her and the entire Lin family into disgrace. She will never be able to hold her head up again for the rest of her life. Younger sister, if you insist on driving us to a dead end, then for mother's sake I will die right in front of you. Lin Chao blocked everyone, refusing to let go of me. A maid carrying water to bathe mother suddenly screamed, "It's over, madam has taken poison." Mother, on her deathbed, took all the blame upon herself. She claimed she had mistaken an aphrodisiac for a tonic, and put it into the soup, causing this outcome with her last breaths. She still defended her beloved daughter. This has nothing to do with Chao, it is because I, as her mother, was not careful enough. I have already lost all face. Let me use my death to wash away this filthy sin. Her eyes swept past the crowd and landed on me with venomous hatred. Did she truly believe her death would make me feel guilty or heartbroken? I walked to the bedside and whispered into her ear, "What I regret is not being able to drag that daughter of yours down into the mud with me. It's fine, I can wait." Upon hearing this, blood gushed from mother's mouth like a fountain. She died, with her eyes wide open right in front of me. The news that Lin Chao had failed to scheme against me and instead caused her own mother's death spread everywhere. Madam Chen, who had never liked her, dragged her in hatred to Hugo Temple to copy scriptures and pray for blessings both to help mother's soul pass on and to force Lin Chao to cultivate her character. Lin Chao wailed and refused to go. Chen Yunjiao stood coldly watching. Finally he asked in exhaustion, if mother-in-law was locked in her room, where did she get the poison? From beginning to end, only your maid entered that room. Lin Chao's heart skipped a beat. I don't understand what you're saying. It was Lin Qing. Clearly she forced mother to her death, but the three men caught in the act with mother had all received banknotes from her. Lin Chao was struck dumb. Chen Yunjiao wearily rubbed his temples. The aftermath have already cleaned it up. Lin Chao dropped all pretense. She gave a cold, mocking laugh. What do you want me to do? Your mother doesn't like me. The people of the capital mock me. Do you still want me to carry this stain for the rest of my life, to be oppressed and trampled by others, living a life worse than death? Chen Yunjiao, I Lin Chao, was born with a noble fate. I could even marry a prince. If you hadn't begged to marry me, how could I have suddenly lost everything? Instead of blaming me for being vicious, you should blame yourself for being useless. Even the reputation and power I wanted, I had to scheme for on my own. The grand wedding had barely passed, yet the two had already begun to tear at each other. It was truly quite a spectacle. The Lin family had notably damaged its reputation. One hair moved and the entire body followed. Perhaps it would even implicate Xiao Jingyuan and bring him curses. I lifted my teacup. In the hazy steam, I spoke softly. Are you blaming me for dragging you into this as well when I borrowed the hands of the seventh princess and the heir? Xiao Jingyuan, wrapped in a fox fur cloak amid the wind and snow, sat opposite me with noble bearing. After a long while he sighed softly. I was only thinking, why did you choose them and not me? My teacup paused at my lips. The wind chimes under the corridor clinked in the breeze. Xiao Jingyuan's voice drifted gently to my ear with the wind. The courtyard is dirty, let's change places to live. Not long after, war with the southern Xia of the Shanglang kingdom was about to erupt. Chen Yunjiao, just like in the previous life, volunteered to go to the front lines and headed north to fight the enemy. Lin Chao was locked away in Huguo Temple. Her hope of accompanying Chen Yunjiao to the battlefield had completely shattered. After 3 years of tempering on the battlefield, Chen Yunjiao could only rely on himself. Before leaving the capital, he blocked my path on the main street. He looked extremely weary. The moon in the sky only becomes an unattainable obsession when it hangs high among the 9 layers of clouds. But the extraordinary woman who had once roamed freely, radiant as the sun in the previous life, was now covered in the dust of the mortal world, her heart full of schemes, constantly causing trouble. And the dry, hard cake that had once been offered to me in the previous life, now even if thrown away, had turned into a bright moon hanging high on the horizon. I moved through the inner courtyards of the powerful families as Prince Ning's fiancé, always maintaining proper boundaries, leaving no room for gossip or mistakes. My composure was so steady that even the Empress Dowager praised me for being prudent and knowing when to advance or retreat. Chen Yunjiao was no longer as cold as when he had first returned. He asked me in a daze why things had turned out this way. In both lifetimes we could not be complete. I looked at him, my voice icy. Perhaps it is because you are a wife killer. Whoever marries you has no good ending. He looked at me as though only today had he truly seen me. Why must you be in such a hurry to gloat? How many people in the imperial family are truly sincere? Is he necessarily the right one? I gave a cold laugh and faced him directly. So what? We both chose according to our hearts, didn't we? His expression stiffened. He suddenly understood. That night I had decisively rolled into the river precisely because I had relied on Hantan Temple to choose to cut ties with him and the past life. The person I chose was Xiao Jingyuan. Just then the carriage curtain lifted slightly and called to me. Qing, the wind and snow are heavy. It is time to go. I did not spare Chen Yunjiao another glance. I turned and stepped into the carriage. The wheels rolled past him with a crisp creaking sound, grinding all the past into dust. Only now did he realize that Lin Qing was no longer the Lin Qing in his memories. Lin Chao was no longer the Lin Chao in his memories. Even his own future was no longer something he could easily grasp as before. Chen Yunjiao carried the memories of the previous life onto the battlefield. Even without the system's prior arrangements, he still won battle after battle, advancing without pause. At the same time, the various princes who were corrupt, the eldest princess who harmed the common people, and Prince Qi who colluded with foreign enemies were all exposed one by me and Xiao Jingyuan working together, using the memories of the previous life. They were arrested and brought before the emperor like weeds being pulled out by the roots. If disasters are not eradicated, chaos will surely come. Only by pulling out every single root of calamity could the tragedy of the previous life, mountains and rivers shattered, never repeat. The situation where Lin Chao's single call would rally 10,000 people, and Chen Yunjiao would sweep everything before him would never appear again. My reputation grew higher day by day. Lin Chao became increasingly tormented. She resisted her mother-in-law and was beaten with the family discipline ruler. She beat the servants and was punished by kneeling in the courtyard. Without the system's help, she became an ordinary person among the masses, able to rely only on her husband's reputation, turning into the useless parasite in the inner courtyard that she herself had once despised in the previous life. Meanwhile, carrying the memories of the previous life, I quietly grasped the weaknesses of the powerful families. I solved difficulties for loyal ministers and good generals, easily winning people's hearts. The asthma of the Grand Tutor's son was intercepted before the poison doctor could act. I used acupuncture to save his life. His gratitude manifested as half the civil official's support for Xiao Jingyuan. Father, who had always been skilled at shifting with the wind, had invested in Lin Chao and failed. He immediately turned to currying favor with me. I truly could not bear to let grandmother, with her white hair, send off her green-haired descendant, so I secretly slipped medicine into the hands of the new concubines Father had taken. Day by day it drained his body. When grandmother passed away at 100 years old, I would see him off on his journey. After 3 years, Chen Yunjiao returned from the battlefield with an injury to his left arm. From then on he could no longer draw a bow. In the previous life, the miraculous pill that could heal such an injury had been something I begged from a strange poison doctor, at the cost of being his medicine human for 3 full years. In this life, when the same injury fell upon him, he waited for the pill with eyes grown weary, but in the end received only the finest golden wound medicine. The poison doctor had also asked Lin Chao, but she claimed her body was weak and pretended to be ill, refusing to meet him. Chen Yunjiao, after hearing his mother's angry and ashamed scolding, sat in the cold night wind for half the night. Lin Chao was so furious she smashed a teacup, yet he still did not push open the door right in front of him at the victory banquet. Chen Yunjiao looked haggard, his gaze occasionally fell upon me. I had grown up, I had also bloomed. In these years Xiao Jingyuan had taken excellent care of me. In my youth I could only envy Lin Chao for eating and dressing well. Now Xiao Jingyuan gave all of that to me. Even grandmother's body had relied on his spiritual medicines to pass the gates of death from the previous life. I had been raised in peace and comfort, developing a noble bearing and appearance. My looks had become radiant, my temperament cool and elegant. Nothing like the sallow, emaciated figure in Chen Yunjiao's memories. He had a moment of stunned admiration, but more than that was confusion. Just like in both lifetimes, he had always made the wrong choice. At that time, I had just used the flood control strategy Lin Chao had employed in the previous life to resolve the flooding in the southwest. My reputation rose like a storm. Chen Yunjiao blocked me in front of the Lin family gates. He huddled in the shadows, calling out hoarsely, "Ching! I regret it." I paused and turned to face him. His eyes were bloodshot, unable to hide the bitterness within. "I have heard about the matters of the Chen family. It is merely that Madame Shen and Lin Chao cannot get along, causing chaos in the household. Madame Shen blames him for abandoning the watermelon to pick up sesame seeds and bringing disaster upon himself. Lin Chao resents him marrying her yet unable to give her the protection she wants, calling him a weak and heartless man. Caught between them, advancing or retreating in a dilemma, he began thinking of the me from the previous life. Back then I had been silent and submissive, obediently, bearing all the storms that rained down from the Chen family, never making things difficult for him. It was not that he had suddenly begun to love me. It was that he was unhappy and had begun to miss the beautiful scenery on the path he had not chosen in this life. Although he achieved great victories, at just over 20 years old his left arm was ruined, leaving him with a lifelong disability. So he regretted it, but he did not know that the storms I endured in the previous life had all come from him. 20 years of being tormented, as though sliced by a mad knife, had long hated him to the bone. Yet looking at the pearl-embroidered shoe peeking out from the dark alley across the street, the corner of my mouth curved. I leaned close to Chen Yunjiao's ear and said word by word, "That is what you knelt and begged for, have you forgotten?" The single sentence, mixed with the wildly dancing snowflakes, sobered Chen Yunjiao 8 parts. The person across the street trembled, turned, and fled deep into the alley. When I turned around, the curve of my lips had already gone cold. Lin Chao had lost her soul. What right did Chen Yunjiao still have to be spirited? The storms he had poured upon me in the previous life should now drown him thoroughly as well. Only 1 day later, using the excuse of sisterly affection, Lin Chao blocked me at the horse training ground. She asked me, "When did you know?" I smiled at her. "Know what?" She smiled with extreme malice. "When did you know that our luck rises and falls with each other, so you clung to Prince Ning, making my marriage go wrong?" Borrowing his hand to climb higher step by step, making me fall hard every time, to the point that even a stupid, crude man like Chen Yunjiao could no longer hold on? "You are wrong," I replied. "I can cling to Prince Ning because I have value that he can use." Didn't elder sister scheme for a long time to steal Chen Yunjiao? But precisely because she lost her value. Once the feelings faded, she was discarded like an old shoe. Marriage and love are merely a partnership between equals. From beginning to end, those who seek love are pierced by 10,000 arrows through the heart. Those who seek profit, gain wealth and glory. I have awakened. You are still dreaming. Every word I speak is sincere, but you do not understand. She gripped my shoulders tightly, her lips curving in a cold smile. But after today you will have no more value, because everything of mine will be seized back from within your blood. The moment her words fell, the mad horse broke free of its restraints and charged straight toward us. Lin Chao once again clutched my robe and viciously shoved me outward. She curved her lips, waiting for me to be trampled to death by the horse's hooves. But the mad horse, still 10 zhang away, was struck in the eye by an arrow and a blade that tore through the wind on the viewing platform above. Xiao Jingyuan drew his bow while Chen Yunjiao gripped his saber hilt. Both stared fixedly at Lin Chao. In the very next instant the mad horse let out a tragic neigh, crashed through the wooden railing, and charged straight at Lin Chao. I remained completely unharmed. Lin Chao, however, was impaled through the lower abdomen by a wooden stake. Not only did she miscarry, but her foundation was damaged. She would never be able to conceive again for the rest of her life, and that mad horse had been deliberately driven insane by the stable hand, bribed by Lin Chao. Her mind, along with the system, seemed to have vanished. All she held now was a miserable failure hidden beneath layers of stupidity. Qin Yunjiao looked as though he had been struck by lightning across the ears. For a long time he could not recover his senses. He only heard Lin Chao cursing him in agony. "It was you who harmed me. It was you who married me, yet could not give me what I wanted. You locked me in a tiny corner like an eagle with broken wings and ruined my entire life. I hate you. I will hate you forever." She was still screaming in pain. Meanwhile, Xiao Jingyuan and I had already knelt together before the emperor begging for justice. Chen Yunjiao, carrying guilt, entered the palace that very night and used his military merits to exchange for Lin Chao's life. The title of Garrison Marquis that had been within reach after 3 years of service returned to nothing overnight. When the emperor asked if I was satisfied, I slowly knelt with my back straight and proposed that Chen Yunjiao kneel outside the palace gates all night to atone for Lin Chao's sins. Chen Yunjiao's pupils trembled. "Why must you do this?" "Why?" I said. "Because in the previous life, while Chen Yunjiao and Lin Chao fought across the lands and became renowned throughout the world, I was always the one kneeling. Lin Chao and Chen Yunjiao, greedy for merit and reckless, rushed into battle. They implicated young General Zhao, who had no time to prepare and could not respond in time. In the end he sacrificed his life for the country in exchange for a tragic victory. Afterward Chen Yunjiao felt some guilt, but Lin Chao smugly mocked General Zhao for lacking talent. Sacrificing his life for the country could be considered fulfilling a general's great ambition. Yet the entire Zhao family poured all their hatred onto the Chen family. In the capital, every covert and open attack targeted the general's manor. I was merely a woman and could not enter the court. I could not persuade Chen Yunjiao either. Pressed by Madame Chen to shoulder the responsibilities of the main wife, I could only wear mourning clothes, escort young General Zhao's coffin, bow my head, and endure every contemptuous gaze and insulting word, just to secure a path of survival for the entire family. Chen Yunjiao and Lin Chao held immortal opportunities in their hands and acted more ruthlessly. To compete for merit, they abandoned Mocheng and its people, using luring the enemy and ambush tactics to annihilate the foe in one strike. They achieved a complete victory, but an entire city of 3,000 households was wiped out overnight beneath iron hooves and blood-soaked blades. The entire capital was shaken. They regarded the Chen family as ferocious beasts and floods. Madame Chen fell gravely ill. Even a trusted physician could not be summoned. Pressed by clan members using filial piety, I removed my hairpin and accepted guilt, kneeling outside the palace gates to beg the emperor for mercy. Snow fell thick as goose feathers, piling 3 feet high. I knelt until my knees were ruined before the palace gates opened, saving Madame Chen's life. The snowy path was difficult to walk. I staggered, slipping with every step. Officials and noble ladies pointed and gossiped, cursing me for dancing with wolves and inviting heavenly punishment. Someone said, "She married into the general's manor in name only. In her entire life, she never once touched her husband's robe. While her elder sister and husband were a divine immortal couple, she knelt beneath her mother-in-law's knees, enduring torment. Isn't this karma?" Because of those words, I twisted my ankle and collapsed onto the cold snow, tears filling my hands. Nothing but humiliation. I had knelt my entire life for their great ambitions and love. In this life, shouldn't it be their turn to kneel? "If you do not kneel, she will die. The choice is yours." His expression changed drastically. He braved the fierce wind and snow, kneeling outside the palace gates for an entire night. The 7th princess sent out stacks of invitation cards, inviting every noble family in the capital to come watch the spectacle. Every mocking, ridiculing, and vicious word that had once been heaped upon me in the previous life now fell one by one upon his head. He had once claimed to be a man who supported heaven and trod the earth. A great hero unbound by inner court affections, a peerless genius standing above 10,000 people. That he was now crushed by rumors until he was wretched and defeated, he understood. The me from the previous life had actually endured such hardship. Those storms had finally been poured back over his own head. Chen Yunzhao lost all face in the capital. He truly could no longer stand. He took Lin Chao far away to the frontier. He came to bid me farewell, having already forgiven himself, wearing an expression of indifference. I already understand my mother. I also understand the temperament of the Chen family. Thinking back, you must have lived very bitterly before. I actually felt some worry, but then I interrupted his excuses and self-justification. Then Lin Chao said, I have always been suspicious by nature. I carry calculations in my belly and will never allow myself to suffer losses. He suddenly looked at me, his expression shaken. I curved my lips in mockery. How pitiful, you understand your wife, only through someone else's words. What a shame, the answer that would make you comfortable in your heart, I will not give you. The calmness on Chen Yunzhao's face cracked bit by bit. He stammered an explanation. My mother has always been gentle and generous. I never thought she would mistreat you. I didn't even know, because the letters I sent you were all read and then burned by you. It is not that I never sought your help. It is only a pity that I did not have Lin Chao's good fortune. When she cried out in pain, you heard her. But when I begged for help, you treated it as full of schemes, and turned around and told everything to your mother. Chen Yunzhao, I once hated you, because I truly lived too oppressed, too dissatisfied. But now I no longer hate you. My future and destiny have already been grasped in my own hands. That is a completely different situation from the previous life. I turned to leave. Chen Yunzhao suddenly called out, Do you love him? Jingyuan stood beneath the corridor, illuminated by the swaying lantern light like a golden Buddha. He only needed to stand there, and I already felt I had support at my back. Everything was at peace. I did not answer. Chen Yunzhao stepped into the light beneath the corridor. Xiao Jingyuan's warm hand took my cold fingertips. He said, The path is slippery, hold my hand tightly. Whether there is love or not does not matter. Chen Yunzhao truly loved Lin Chao, but all he brought her was wind, rain, and storms. Real protection and tangible giving were far more valuable than love. Lin Chao tried her best, just like in the previous life, using immortal opportunities to guide Chen Yunzhao in battle. Unfortunately, she had lost the female protagonist's luck. Without that foundation to support her, her hasty decisions led to mistakes that implicated Chen Yunzhao, nearly resulting in the annihilation of the entire army. Chen Yunzhao was hung high on the city wall, becoming the enemy nation's final bargaining chip. Prince Ning led troops on a campaign, advancing straight to the imperial court. When their eyes met, he said, Those who scheme for great undertakings cannot avoid bloodshed and sacrifice. Countless generals and soldiers face life and death partings everywhere. You are a general of great yang. You must be decisive for the greater picture and cannot bury the army's morale for personal feelings. Xiao Jingyuan drew his bow without the slightest hesitation and shot an arrow that severed the rope. Chen Yunzhao fell from the city wall with a heavy thud, smashing onto the cold brick floor. Fresh blood reflected the regret and pain in his eyes. So this was how it felt when Lin Qing was abandoned, equally painful. So this was the feeling of pouring everything out only to be discarded in the end. Even falling upon a tall man like him, he could not endure it. The war finally ended in great victory. Xiao Jingyuan achieved tremendous merit, and amid everyone's expectations, was in theft as Crown Prince Chen Yunzhao's entire body was covered in frost and injuries. Both legs were crippled. He returned to the capital in wretched condition. Because he had rushed for merit and implicated thousands of generals and soldiers in a tragic death, he became a criminal. Even the Chen family was demoted to commoners. The crown prince petitioned the emperor to have the crippled Chen Yunzhao copy scriptures in the Buddhist hall every day, to atone for the generals who had died in battle. Chen Yunzhao's reputation fell into the abyss. Locked in the rear courtyard with his ruined body, he copied scriptures and prayed for blessings, enduring days of suffering. He remembered the hardships I had endured in the previous life, carrying regret. He begged to see me once. Naturally, I did not grant his wish. It was not regret he felt, it was fear. Fear that once I held great power and stood above 10,000 people, I would take his life in revenge for the previous life. But he thought too much. I would let him use every last bit of a great general's talent. For Great Yang's expansion of borders, I would squeeze every drop of experience from his previous life, until the very end. Only on the road, back to the capital, would I make him live a life worse than death. I would not take his life. I would let him live and suffer for 40 full years. Just like I had been crushed by the secular world in the previous life, carrying endless grievances with nowhere to vent, never receiving a single ray of salvation, dragging out my last breaths day by day in a lowly existence. Lin Xiao could not escape punishment either, but she rushed before me, begging me to show mercy for the sake of sisterly affection and strike lightly. She even said that for a path of survival she could abandon the useless Chen Yunjiao in this world. Was there truly such a thing as wanting both this and that? I looked at her coldly and said, word by word, icy and merciless, that is your retribution. Unable to obtain what she begged for, she flew into a rage. She pulled the hairpin from her hair and tried to take my life to seize back her luck. But the moment she raised the hairpin, an arrow struck her left eye. It was still Xiao Jingyuan. The arrow that should have struck Lin Xiao at the horse training ground had finally landed on her today. Unwilling to accept it, she screamed, you only rely on men. You are a useless wife. What do you have to compare with me? I looked down at her with a trace of pity. A truly strong woman must understand how to borrow a man's strength to elevate her own value. Borrowing strength to grow is not dependence, it is choice. I paved the way for the Crown Prince's imperial power. He lit the lamp for my future, illuminating and warming each other. Isn't that also a kind of mutual support where both sides win? The fairness I begged for in the previous life, the unwillingness and resentment I was imprisoned with for a lifetime, I finally reached out and grasped it. I have stepped onto the shore. I have won. The losers are them. Lin Xiao, because she begged for mercy, was only branded as a slave. Coincidentally, the one who bought her was the proud young lady she had once bullied. That was the ending worse than death. I granted her in exchange for long-lasting fortune for myself. The peerless genius of heaven fell to become a horse slave trampled upon. From now on she could never turn her life around, nor could she ever steal my luck again. Unwilling to accept it, she called upon the system day and night to take her away, but that so-called system never responded to her again. A person cannot entrust everything to others' parents, husband, children, or her so-called system. In the previous life, I had tasted enough of that lesson. In this life, I held everything firmly in my own hands. The Crown Prince and I married on the appointed day. Grandmother watched me in 10 miles of red wedding attire, leaving the family with joy and pride. The worry that had hung over her for 2 lifetimes finally settled. When I bowed farewell to my family, I bowed only to grandmother. Everyone thought it was only natural and felt no surprise. Father, now gaunt and haggard, suddenly called out in panic, Ching. I paused for a moment but did not stop. I walked for a very long time. When I finally stood in a high position and had seized the fairness that had always belonged to me, the love and protection of parents had become so insignificant, they were not worth mentioning. Xiao Jingyuan lifted my bridal veil. He was still as indifferent as ever. His long eyes slightly lifted. Candlelight flickered across my face. He placed the wedding wine cup into my hand. After a long while he finally spoke one sentence. For the rest of my life I entrust everything to you. He was very good, I was not lacking either. On this path of continuous ascent, what I had wanted from beginning to end was only to bear flowers and bear fruit. 10 years later, Xiao Jingyuan ascended the throne. Together we stepped onto the position above 10,000 people. Many years afterward, when he was old and frail, he recalled Chen Yunjiao's words from back then and asked if I had ever loved him. I thought for a moment. After several decades of standing shoulder to shoulder, his inner courtyard had never added anyone else. His favoritism and protection had clearly been given. Only to me we had children, and every feeling I gave was answered in kind. It could not be called incomplete toward Xiao Jingyuan. I believed I did love him, but my love was too vast. I loved power, I loved status, I loved the common people, I loved the freedom of standing above 10,000, and I also loved the fairness I had begged for in vain in the previous life. In the end, the one a person loves most is still themselves.